Hey, welcome back to How to Barbecue Right. I'm Malcolm Reed. I know everybody's firing those pits up this weekend for the 4th of July holiday, so I wanted to share with you my recipe for American as apple pie ribs. I'm bringing my Yoder pellet grill out of the bullpen, got him warmed up with some good apple pellets, so it's putting some nice smoke in the air. We're gonna get these ribs seasoned with some apple flavoring. It's gonna make them sweet, they're gonna be smoky, and they're gonna be delicious. Let's get to cooking. So I've got 2 racks of St. Louis cut ribs, took them out of the cryovac package and just kind of trimmed the ends up, squared them up to where they're more uniform. I also pulled the membranes off each side so we can really get rid of that barrier. It lets the seasoning stick to the rib. So the first thing I'm gonna do, we've got some apple cider vinegar in a little spray bottle. I'm just gonna spritz the ribs. And the vinegar is gonna give us something for the seasoning to stick to. It's kind of working as that mustard we use sometimes. It's just a binder. Then I'm gonna hit them with a little bit of kosher salt. It's gonna be a little savory element, kind of wake up the flavors, and I'm not going super heavy with the salt. We're gonna flip them, we're gonna do both sides. So I've got the cider vinegar acting as our binder, just giving it a little spritz over the top. It doesn't need a lot, but this is where we're starting that foundation of those apple flavors. We're gonna come back, a little kosher salt. And we're gonna let this kosher salt just kind of sweat in for about 15-20 minutes on the ribs. We're gonna come back and season them. So after the ribs have set about 15 minutes, we're gonna get some seasoning on them. And today, for these American as apple pie ribs, I'm using my buddy Heath Riles apple rub. It's got a nice fruit flavor to it. Just going with a light coat on the back side. And this is the only seasoning that I'm actually gonna put on them. We've got the salt, we've got the apple rub. That is all they need. And right now I can smell it's kind of got a little fruity apple aroma to it. That's awesome. Same thing for the meat side, just a light coat of the apple rub. And you want them to sweat about 15 more minutes. So after about 15 minutes, that apple rub is really just kind of melted into these ribs. Now I've got my Yoder smoker fired up today. I'm running some apple pellets in it. So you can cook this recipe on any pit. If you want to use real apple wood, that would be fine. Just hold those temps steady about 250 degrees. I'm gonna put them on the top rack of my Yoder here, kind of bunch them up a little bit, straighten them up. We want good straight bones. We want them to get tall. That smoke's gonna make them happy. So the ribs have been on about 45 minutes. It's time to spritz them. So I'm taking the vinegar that we actually basted the ribs with first and adding some apple juice to it. It's just kind of a 50-50 mix. It's about a cup each though. Makes a good spritz. Put it back in the spray bottle and let's go over to the grill, spritz these ribs. You see they're starting to dry out a little bit. It's a perfect time to get a little spritz on them. Just want to moisten up the tops a little. Then I'm going to touch up the tops of the ribs a little bit, a little extra apple rub. We didn't go real heavy with the seasoning, so this is going to kind of start building us some bark. They are looking fantastic. We still got about another hour or so. We'll come back, check them in 45 minutes. Give them one last little spritz. Looks good. Still got that apple smoke going. Just keep cooking. All right, it's been another 45 minutes. Time for another spritz. Our seasoning's starting to look really good. We're going to need to wrap here just within the next half hour or so. I'm gonna go ahead and get them a little bit more of the apple juice, apple cider vinegar mixture going. They don't need any more seasoning at this point. I'm happy with the bark we got going. The Yoder is doing its job. Let's get the lid back closed. So I'm gonna get our ribs off one at a time now. What I'm looking for is that top of them, that bark to really be set where it's not coming off. And these ribs look perfect. Backside looks great. We're gonna take them over to the cutting board. Show you how we're gonna wrap these American as apple pie ribs. So first I have a half a stick of butter that I've kind of cut up into pats, and we're gonna use a half a stick for each rack. Now, to get those apple pie or those apple flavors going on these ribs, I'm using apple butter. And apple butter is kind of like a souped up applesauce. It has cinnamon, has some other spices like nutmeg in it, it's got some brown sugar. It's kind of dark, the apples have been cooked down, and that's what we're gonna use in our wrap. So I'm just putting, some heaping teaspoons of this apple butter on it. I'm gonna take a brush, just kind of move it around over the top of the rib. It's almost like we're glazing it in the wrap. Then we're gonna flip it over on top, go meat side down, right here on top of our butter. Back of them looks good. If there's anything you want to pick off at this point, that's a good time to do it. Now for the back side, I'm gonna go ahead and spritz them again with our apple juice, apple cider vinegar mixture, just to give them some moisture. I'm not putting any of the apple butter on the back, just a little extra liquid. Then we're gonna wrap the foil around them. Just bring it over, tuck our ends up. These are ready to go back on the pit, meat side down. I'm gonna grab the other rack of ribs. Same thing for this guy. The rub's stuck, it's dried onto the meat. It's kind of fused into it, it's made that bark. Backside looks good. We'll put our butter down. It's half a stick. Come with our apple butter on top. 3 good heaping teaspoons, maybe a little extra, why not? About finish that jar up. And we're gonna kind of brush it in. Flip these ribs over on the butter. Pick off anything that's kind of hanging loose. A little spritz of the apple juice, apple cider vinegar mixture. And we're gonna wrap them up. Bring the ends up and over so we can get back in them and check for tenderness. Going back on the pit. So the ribs have been on about 1 hour and 15 minutes at this point. This is when I like to look at them. Just take a quick peek with our thermopin, see how they're doing, they're breaking down. Oh yeah, I'm seeing disintegration already on the back side. Check some internal temps here. We're getting there. I mean, 198. I'd like to get 202. Maybe just another 10, 15 minutes tops. See if I can get in this back slab without doing too much damage to myself or the ribs. They're not broke down near as much. I don't know if you can tell in there. So I'm gonna just stick my thermopin in. Still, that one's filling there. I think we're getting close. That back slab is actually, it hadn't disintegrated as much, but it's still giving me those temps that I'm wanting to see. We'll close them back up. Let's go 10 more minutes, and I'm gonna get them off, show you how we're gonna finish these ribs up. We've got to put together that glaze. So I'm gonna get the ribs out of the foil, and this is very hot. You wanna wear some hand protectors here, because these ribs are tender, they're hot, they've been in the steam. First, I'm gonna bring them over here, we're gonna put them meat down. I'll go ahead and grab the other rack. A little more disintegration on this rack, but they're still hanging together. And they're super tender at this point, so be real careful. So on the back side, the first thing I'm gonna do is hit them with a little more of the apple rub. We're just prettying them up at this point. They've been rendered down, that full did its job, but they still need a little cosmetic work. So just a touch of seasoning. I'm gonna go ahead and put our glaze on the back side. Now this is a simple glaze. It took half a jar of apple jelly, mixed it with some of my vinegar sauce and some of my regular sauce, and that's all that's in it. I just melted that apple jelly with a splash of apple juice in the microwave for 3 or 4 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. Turns into a thin glazed liquid, then mixed it with the sauces. So we're just brushing it on the back side of the bones. That looks beautiful. These ribs smell fantastic. Carefully gonna roll them over. That's the money side there. All that apple butter's cooked down. It's kind of got the bark soft on them, but we're gonna get all that back by adding a little more of our seasoning just to pretty them up. And before I glaze them, I'm gonna stick them right back on the pit. They need about 10 minutes to let this rub set, let it start melting down. Then I'm gonna glaze them. So I'm just setting them right back on the top shelf of the Yoder in the pan, not transferring them. We'll come back and we'll glaze them here in about 10 minutes. Now check it out, we let that rub set just for 10 minutes on top, and it got all of our color right back to these ribs, and they look beautiful. We're gonna glaze them right here on the pit. Exact same sauce, that melted apple jelly with a little bit of the barbecue sauce and vinegar sauce combined. I'm just brushing it on. We're gonna let it tack up, let it get sticky, let it kind of cook down, caramelize a little bit. And then the best part, I get to eat them. That looks good. Close them up, let this sauce tack up a little bit, let it cook down onto the rib. So these ribs have been glazing about 15 minutes, about all I can stand. So how do we do on these American as apple pie ribs? These ribs are beautiful. So I let the ribs sit here just for about 5-10 minutes. That's long enough for me to let them rest. I'm gonna set them here on the board, and I'm gonna cut them up and try one. Y'all know I like ribs, right? That looks good. So I'm gonna flip them over, meat side down. This makes cutting them a little bit easier. And you're just gonna take a knife and cut them into whatever sizes you like. I mean, they're super tender right now, easy to cut. I just kind of see in between the bones. Cut them into individual pieces, flip them over here. We can see what we're working with. Look at that. I mean, it's juicy. Got smoke ring. How about we move them out of the way, push these up. Bring this other rack over. Beautiful. Same thing, right in between the bones. Straight cuts, nothing to it. All right, let's flip these over. Wow, that is a smoke ring and a juicy rib right there. I've got to try one. You know, cutting them up's fun, taking pictures, all that good stuff, but you don't really know how they are till you pick one up and try it. So that's the moment of truth, right? Perfect bite. You get the sweetness from the apple, but it's not overpowering. I'm calling these my American as apple pie ribs, and the apple does come through from the smoke to the apple butter to the Heath Riles apple rub that we used, but it really blends all perfectly. It's got a great savory note to it, smokiness, and the apple just sets it off. Wow. Hey, that's a 4th of July rib in my book. Now I do have to try one just for fairness out of the other rack. So let's get one of these right here on this end. Another beautiful rib, packed full of moisture, glaze on top, sticking to it, not coming off. I mean, that's awesome. The backside looks good. Perfect bite. That's delicious, clean bone. Hey, these are good enough for competitions. Now that apple flavor on these ribs is really special, and it comes through all the way from the seasoning to the Spritz we use to the wrap, the whole 9 yards, even with the apple pellet smoke. And if you want to cook these on another pit, just throw some apple wood on there. Keep that temp 250 the whole time. Guarantee you're going to love these. For 4th of July, serving these to your friends and family, it's going to be a new American tradition. Hey, thanks for checking us out here at HowToBBQRight. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to the channel. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Shell and I will talk about this rib recipe and all the other fun stuff we're cooking on our weekly podcast. Y'all tune into that too. Y'all fire those grills up for 4th of July. We'll see you next time. Tell you what, Shell, I'm gonna eat another one. These are banging like some bottle rockets, Jack. Y'all don't mind me, I'm just finishing up a rib bone.